if you're President Trump, how do you respond to a very rare scolding from the Chief Justice of the United States, basically to stop attacking federal judges? Well, you attack a federal judge. This has to do with the case involving the White House efforts to deport what it calls Venezuelan gang members using an 18th century law. President Trump is calling for the judge in this case, calling for his impeachment. This prompted the extraordinary statement from the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, actually the Chief Justice of the United States, John Roberts. For more than 2 centuries, it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose. Let's get to CNN's Kevin Liptak at the White House, who will convey exactly what the feelings are from the president, Kevin.
Yeah. I can tell you just what Trump said. He essentially tried to shrug off the Roberts criticism, saying that he didn't think Roberts was talking specifically about him because he didn't name him in that statement, which is a little beyond the realm. I think it was pretty unambiguous what Roberts was saying there and who Roberts was talking to. But I do also think it's notable that the president is not trying to jump into a feud directly with the Chief Justice of the United States. Of course, so much of Trump's agenda is heading towards the Supreme Court, and he will need, at the end of the day, Justice Roberts if some of these items that he's been trying to enact are upheld by the highest court in the land. So Justice Roberts is one judge that President Trump does not seem to be interested in picking a fight with directly at the moment, but that's not stopping him from going after this other federal judge in Washington who has blocked the deportations under the Alien Enemies Act, but also, very notably, has cast some very intense skepticism on the administration's rationale for not turning around the planes of those alleged gang members, even though he specifically told them to. And so I think we do have some of the sound from the president. Let's listen to what he said in response to Justice Roberts.
He didn't mention my name in the statement. I just saw it quickly. He didn't mention my name, but many people have called for his impeachment, the impeachment of this judge. I don't know who the judge is, but he's radical left. What do you do when you have a rogue judge? The judge that we're talking about, you look at his other rulings, I mean, rulings unrelated, but having to do with me, he's a lunatic.
So not backing off at all against that criticism of the judge in Washington. And this is part of a concerted strategy here. This is not Trump necessarily sort of going off on his own. When you listen to White House advisors, they do believe that the majority of the country is behind them on these hardline deportation tactics, and that by going after the judge in this case, it only bolsters the president politically. So I don't think you can expect him to back off. In fact, he did not back off overnight when he was posting on Truth Social. He said if a president doesn't have the right to throw murderers and other criminals out of our country because a radical left lunatic judge wants to assume the role of president, then our country is in very big trouble and destined to fail. But, you know, notably, he'd stopped short of calling again for this judge's impeachment, perhaps internalizing somewhat some of what Roberts told him in that statement. John.
Perhaps. All right, Kevin Liptak at the White House this morning. Thanks so much for all of that.
Joining me now is CNN senior legal analyst Elie Honig, former chief judge for the Middle District Court of Pennsylvania, Johnny Jones, and CNN political commentator Xochitl Ianosa, former director of public affairs at the Justice Department. Judge Jones, how big a deal is Chief Justice's rebuke here?
It's a very big deal, Anderson, because this is something that the very, I think, taciturn and mild-mannered Chief Justice doesn't normally do. As was noted, he did it back in 2018, as you said earlier, and it happened to be, again, triggered by Donald Trump. It's very remarkable. The court typically doesn't wade into these types of disputes. The constant drumbeat of impeachment threats and, in fact, filings by the Congress, I think now have hit a nerve at the Supreme Court. So it's very, very remarkable.
Elliot, I mean, the president's Were you surprised that he did this?
I was. I mean, he's done it now 3 times in 20 years. I don't think the Chief Justice's purpose here was to give us a primer on impeachment. I think we all understand that we don't impeach federal judges because we don't like their rulings. I think the Chief Justice decided that this was a moment when he had to stand up for the judiciary. And think about all that's going on right now. We have these almost daily verbal attacks by the president and many others on judges. We have other judges whose orders are either being intentionally defied or at least sort of recklessly disregarded by the Justice Department. So the very decision by the Chief Justice to come out and say something like this, that in itself is politically fraught. But I think in his judgment, this was the moment and that's what was called for.
Sochi, do you think the Justice Department has partially put out this fire by giving Judge Boasberg some of the details he wanted? He wants more. There's going to be another hearing tomorrow. Do you think this is going to escalate if they don't ultimately provide everything for you? Essentially wants to know who was on the flight, which they went into more details today, but not really about everybody on the flight.
Well, they need to provide this. I mean, this is something where they've said that it can be sealed. The judge is willing to work with them if there is information that the public can't necessarily see. I think that the Justice Department is trying to escalate this. They like a fight with the court, especially when it comes to an issue like this. You saw that on the filing. The filings are not only coming from the line attorney who's working on the matter, it's everyone in leadership at the Justice Department is signed on to these filings.
Well, why did they do that?
Unprecedented. They do it to essentially escalate it a bit more and to get the attention that they're getting. I also believe that this is an issue that is close to Trump. This is something that he has promised to do. He promised to crack down on violent criminals. They like the visuals of deporting these people. I believe that the Attorney General, the Deputy Attorney General, and the leadership there are sort of at a race and racing each other to please Trump. And so this is all part of the theater around it. It's interesting to me that their filing yesterday really asked the judge to sort of de-escalate. And they believed that the judge was sort of taking things to the next level. Well, I would say the Justice Department is the one escalating it. They're the ones that are picking the fight with the judge. They're the ones out there calling for impeachment. They're the ones out there bashing the judge. Something, by the way, that the Justice Department normally doesn't do. And whenever you have a president commenting on a matter before a court, it is working at the Justice Department. You normally cringe when that happens. If I were working at the Justice Department and Joe Biden would have called for the impeachment of a judge, I can assure you that there would have been a public statement from the Justice Department saying that we disagree.
Judge Jones, I mean, White House aides have been saying in recent days that federal district judges don't have the authority to rule against the president on a host of issues. Stephen Miller said judges have no authority to administer the executive branch. What do you say to that?
I think Mr. Miller probably needs to take a civics lesson because that's just patently untrue. I saw that interview, and you know, he got himself overheated talking about his version of what he thinks judges can do and what jurisdiction they have. And Anderson, I got to tell you something else that I think has been a little bit forgotten, and I find this interesting. President Trump's late sister, who passed away a couple years ago, Marianne Trump Barry, is a former United States district judge and then was put on the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. I happen to know her a bit. She was an excellent judge, very decent person. You know, Donald Trump knows judges, and he understands what judges do. And to intentionally misstate, as Mr. Miller and others in the White House have done, what judges have the jurisdiction and the power to do, and to trivialize federal judges the way the administration is doing. They're playing a dangerous game here with Judge Boasberg, you know, who set another deadline tomorrow. And this is like, you know, the force continuum. This is escalating day after day. So tomorrow's going to be another showdown. We'll see what happens.